Well, yes, Tampa, Florida is on the list to become a new 15-minute city. It will happen through the Tampa Moves plan. Yes, you heard me right. Tampa, Florida is on the list to become a new 15-minute city. That's right. The 40 acres of waterfront property is owned by none other than Bill Gates through an investment fund. Waterfront property in Tampa, Florida. Now, thanks to Patriot's Voice for that little Bill Gates part of the story. I knew that Tampa was on the list among Portland, Oregon, Portland, Maine. There's a bunch of other cities right now that are sort of on that target list to become 15-minute cities, and Tampa is one of them. And right now, of course, in the eye of a hurricane. But again, Patriot's Voice, I didn't realize Bill Gates was actually behind it and the funding for it. But that shouldn't surprise any of us, right? He's behind all of it, it seems. And so just put that in your brain as you think about this story about Tampa, Florida right now and the storm surges that's about to hit there. But first, get out now or die. That was the message from Florida this morning. Hours ago, Tampa Mayor Jane Castor issued a blunt warning ahead of the massive hurricane that's about to hit. It's being called worse than Helene. She said those who choose to stay will likely die due to this storm. This is the largest storm to ever hit Florida in modern tracking history. It's the largest storm to hit Tampa since 1921. Hurricane Milton, a Category 4 storm at this stage, is expected to bring unprecedented tidal surges up to 15 feet, surpassing the devastation caused by Hurricane Helene. The U.S. Air Force just a short time ago flew through the hurricane and found that it's now strengthening once again. So this thing could go, down to 3, Category 3, up to 4, maybe up to 5 again, back down to 4. It's hard to tell at this moment exactly how big it's going to be once it strikes, but there's no escaping the fact that it is going to hit Florida. There's no way around it. It's going to be massive wherever it hits. We could talk about the specific spots of where in Tampa, north, south of Tampa, it's going to hit. It's going to hit the coast, and it's absolutely devastating. Just look right now at people trying to get out of there. It's like wall-to-wall traffic, people trying to get out. They've, of course, shut down water. They've shut down sewers. City of Orlando has lowered the water levels of the river capacity now to try to absorb as much of this as possible in Orlando. Castor, the mayor, stressed that the storm's catastrophic impact could be unlike anything residents have ever experienced and wants people out of there right now. And it seems, according to the reports that I'm hearing, that people are heeding this warning and they're getting out of here. Mm-hmm. They're not trying to play around with this.
Well, and
trying to stay.
You know what else is in Tampa, right? Is the Capcom. So all the communications for all the ships and warships and everything in the ocean and all that. So it's like right
there's
there.
There's a lot of stuff in Tampa. There's a lot of what I'm trying to say, intelligence community stuff in Tampa as well. So this is going to be devastating. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris is trying her best right now to pretend that she's in charge. It's almost she's like a paratrooper trying to parachute in right now. Like, hey, I'm here, guys, and I'm going to put on a flak jacket and pretend that I'm part of this team. I'm going to suddenly pretend that I have anything to do with this. And President Biden isn't having it. So something fishy is going on right now at the White House. This is sort of the drama behind the scenes, but I'm telling you, something big is happening. Something very fishy is going on. There's a couple of different angles to this right now. So according to Jack Posobiec, just last night, there was a physical altercation between Jill Biden, who is essentially the president at the moment, and Kamala's staffers. Physical, not just an altercation, a physical altercation in the White House after Joe's press room last week began with accusations that the Bidens were undermining Kamala deliberately. And this is from a White House official. So somebody got in a fight with Kamala staffers about this. They think that the Biden administration right now, President Biden, is trying to undermine Kamala Harris.
Or you could read between the lines and interpret that as that Kamala's campaign staffers wanted to place her in the center of some action, and the Bidens said no.
Right. I mean, that could be the exactly. That's the point I think that is happening here, is that they're trying to stick her into these moments now. Go ahead, Philip.
Well, I'm just processing this, but so they're saying that the president of the United States is being accused of trying to undermine the vice president of the United States. That right. Just seems a little on the backwards to me.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly right. What's happening. But again, remember, he wanted to run for president. He was thrown out in a coup and he's still pissed about it. So the idea that, of course, he is somehow in love with Kamala Harris and her team is garbage at this stage. I mean, he was thrown out. And in moments of clarity, I'm sure he's aware of that. And Jill Biden, by the way, was furious about the whole thing, didn't want to have anything to do with it, and fought tooth and nail to make sure that President Biden was still the nominee in the new year. Which,
by the way, he was polling higher when they threw him out than she is currently polling right now.
Yes. So it's devastating. And there's a couple of pieces. I mean, just a few minutes ago, actually, President Biden is in Milwaukee. So he's in Milwaukee right now. Again, all these pieces coming together, guys. Just kind of stay with me here. Just try to grapple all these apples right now as they come together. So her polls, the new polls out overnight, show that she's doing really terribly among blue collar workers in America. That blue collar workers think that she's a fraud. Right. So these are hardworking Americans, blue collar workers. So what does Biden do today? He goes to Milwaukee and gives a speech in Milwaukee, not with Kamala. He goes by himself to talk about steel fitting and the infrastructure package. He's speaking to blue collar workers. This is not a coincidence. On the same day that this new poll comes out, he's speaking to blue collar workers, basically showing them like, hey, I'm your guy. And she's tanking in the polls. It's fascinating. So yesterday, she accused Ron DeSantis of Florida of ignoring her phone calls. Here's the beauty. She gets on the phone and is trying to call Florida. Meanwhile, President Biden has already been talking to him. So she gets on the phone and he won't take her calls. Ron DeSantis is like, you're not going to play politics with this hurricane. You're trying to jump on the phone now and pretend that you're in charge. You're somehow in charge of FEMA. You're trying to look presidential. You have no authority.
Well, to be clear, the press said that she had called and wouldn't take the calls. He later clarifies that I don't know who he called. She's not involved. So watch her sort of faux outrage as she's playing politics and accusing him of playing politics when really that's what she's doing. Yeah, let's watch.
You know, moments of crisis, if nothing else, should really be the moment that anyone who calls themselves a leader says they're going to put politics aside and put the people first. People are in desperate need of support right now, and playing political games with this moment in these crisis situations, these are the height of emergency situations, is just utterly irresponsible, and it is selfish, and it is about political gamesmanship instead of doing the job that you took an oath to do, which is to put the people first.
Yeah, so apparently DeSantis not taking her phone calls. She's trying to call and he's ignoring her phone calls. This is really upsetting liberals. This is really upsetting liberals on social media in Florida who are, really upset that Ron DeSantis won't take phone calls from Kamala Harris. Just look at the liberal tears. Watch.
This is not political unless you make it political. This weather is not political. It's weather. It's not political unless you make it political. Ron DeSantis is refusing to take calls from the White House and Kamala Harris because he says they're politically motivated. We are in the middle of a fucking disaster. It's gonna come hit us. And he won't take calls from the White House.
Well, if you go to the governor's website, it has a long list of people that he's pretty worried about now. People in juvenile detention centers, people in nursing homes, animal sanctuaries. He's pretty stinking busy, and it is a long list of things that they're actually taking care of. Has nothing to do with anybody's campaign. So what resources does Kamala Harris have at her fingertips that Joe Biden cannot release? Who is it important to talk to at this point?
So here is Ron DeSantis. He responding to all of this. He spoke on my old show, Fox and Friends, this morning to the team over there, and he just slammed her. Well, listen to this response. Watch.
And we've been laser focused on leveraging all resources available, including from the federal government. And I've been in touch with both FEMA and the president, as well as marshaling all our state agencies and working to support our local communities. And so for Kamala Harris to try to say that my sole focus on the people of Florida is somehow selfish is delusional. She has no role in this. In fact, she's been vice president for 3.5 years. I've dealt with a number of storms under this administration. She has never contributed anything to any of these efforts. And so what I think is selfish
Has she ever
is her
called
trying to
before?
blunder into this. No. And here's
Has
the
she ever
thing.
called before?
She has no role. No, she has no role in this process. I'm in contact with the President of the United States. I'm in contact with FEMA director. I'm obviously managing all our state agencies. We're supporting all our local government. And I will say this. I've had storms under both President Trump and President Biden, and I've worked well with both of them. She's the first one who's trying to politicize the storm, and she's doing that just because of her campaign.
So actually that was Hannity, not Fox and Friends. But nevertheless, he's saying she's trying to call. I'm already talking to the president. I'm talking to your boss. I'm already dealing with the president at the federal level. And so President Biden just about 2 hours ago was asked directly that question. And again, so I want you to understand how this is all sort of coming together here. He just threw Kamala under the bus. Listen to Biden. Listen, you have to listen to some cacophony of some reporters yelling questions to him. But one of the questions specifically is about working with DeSantis. Did you talk to DeSantis? Are you working with the governor of Florida? And listen to his response.
Has been cooperative. He said he's gotten all that he needs. I talked to him again yesterday, and I said, no, you're doing a great job. It's all being done well. We thank you for it. And I literally gave my personal phone number to call. So I don't know. There was a rough start in some places, but every governor from Florida to North Carolina has been fully cooperative and supportive and acknowledged what this team is doing. And they're doing an incredible job. But we got a lot more to do.
You can't have it both ways. She can't be in charge of the country and not take responsibility for the country. So that's her campaign. She's done great things as vice president, but everything bad she's not responsible for. She has no leverage on FEMA. The president is still alive and working, but she wants to be involved in FEMA and also show that she takes the credit. So,
yeah, so
okay,
maybe she
which
should
one is it?
Head to the border now. Just go. If the hurricane stuff is all taken care of by Biden and the governors, head to the border. Let's focus on that now.
Right. Well, she was just there, and for the second time, really, or really the first time, because the first time she was in a holding area. But yeah, I mean, so she's either taking care of FEMA's response, a big part of the hurricane response, both in Hurricane Helene and what's going on in Florida, or you're not involved with it. Or there's a third way, which is you go on The View and you somehow blame the federal government's response on Hurricane Helene. You've got to figure out a way to blame it on President Trump, of course, because he's not president. Watch.
Kamala, and I'm calling you Kamala because for all of those who are mispronouncing it, I want you all to know how to say it. There you go. But let's talk about something you would do different from Donald Trump. Right now, there is a monster storm barreling towards my state of Florida, a place that's still reeling from Hurricane Helene. Trump is lying, claiming that the Biden administration is intentionally withholding aid from the areas where Republicans live and that FEMA funds are being redirected to migrants. Ironically, that is something he did in 2019. What do you think the effect of these lies are, and why is he doing this?
Well, it's profound, and it is the height of irresponsibility and, frankly, callousness. So lives are literally at stake right now. I traveled to Georgia and to North Carolina after Hurricane Helene. In Georgia, I met a woman who just days earlier, her husband was killed in their home by a fallen tree. Days later, I met with her and her daughter. You can imagine the pain, the shock that they are still in about what they experienced, what they witnessed. I mean, we're talking about real human beings and their lives, and them losing everything. Everything. This woman lost her husband, her child lost her father. People are losing their home with no hope of ever being able to reconstruct or return. And the idea that somebody would be playing political games for the sake of himself, but this is so consistent about Donald Trump. He puts himself before the needs of others. I fear that he really lacks empathy on a very basic level to care about the suffering of other people and then understand the role of a leader is not to beat people down, it's to lift people up.
Absolutely.
Especially in a time of crisis.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's
Then
our
put on
leader.
some sweats and go hand out supplies and stop doing all these press junkets.
Yeah, shovel some sand then into some bags. How about that?
Show us how human you are.
You know, of course, you know, if you look at how FEMA has been destroyed with DEI over the past couple of years, you know, this is a direct response to how the Biden administration put the idea of equity in FEMA and restructured FEMA, instead of focusing on the actual storm response and how they could marshal money, correctly. They're worried about illegal migrants being labeled misgendered. I mean, that's FEMA's focus right now. And that was all done under the Biden administration. That was all done under Biden and Harris administration. So it's amazing to watch her just sort of parachuting in on these situations right now. And then to me, it's more interesting, though, to watch how President Biden and the White House is throwing her under the bus right now.
Right.
And, you know, pointing out that she's not involved in this. By the way, if she was involved with this, they would have had her sitting next to President Biden today instead of Jennifer Granholm. They would have had Kamala Harris sitting right next to him during this press conference today, and they didn't. And they didn't do it on purpose. They didn't do it on purpose.
I saw a meme that said, "Stop having press conferences while I'm on Howard Stern." It's inconvenient because I've decided to do friendly press now. Go ahead, David.
Well, and I've seen a lot of people on Twitter saying it looks like Biden is intentionally trying to tank her campaign. And like, it does look that way. I mean,
yeah, it's hard not to see it that way.
She's the one tanking it, but he's just not saying the same narrative she is. He's telling the truth with this instance.